Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you so much for joining. Well, this one is all about our beliefs. Now, I've said before, my whole premise for starting this channel was how I had this epiphany about how if you get locked into a belief system, it can actually blind you to seeing truths when they come your way. And with the Seth reading that the book I've been in the middle of reading that I gave you guys an excerpt of last time, I'm now realizing that our beliefs go so much further than just blinding us to the truth or things like that. They actually can have a huge impact on how our reality, the reality we experience. Our beliefs are just so powerful and way more powerful than I initially thought. And so, yeah, if you would join me on the fence as we look into how our beliefs are molding the reality we experience. Now, if you guys remember, I created this animation early on, and it was basically to show how, you know, everyone's sort of in their belief cubicles, right? And this is what the sort of the vision I had when I came up with the whole unbiased and on the fence thing. You got all these different world views, and what it does is everyone that's sort of sticking up above the wall, everybody has their worst foot forward, so to speak. So, whether you're seeing, you know, whatever worldview you're in, when you look at the other worldviews, you don't see the you don't see that everyone's sort of got their family. They're just normal, loving people in their particular settings. You think of a Muslim, you think of a suicide bomber, right? If you're not in that group. But of course, if you're in that group, you don't think like that. Or, if, you're not into science, you'll just see the mad scientist and think of how crazy he is. And, or the fire and brimstone preacher. If you're not into religion, not realizing everyone is really the same down in their cubicles. They just got different worldviews, and everyone is viewing them from what's sticking up above the cubicles. That's when I realized that there was some truth to be found in every group. I mean, every group builds themselves around a truth or truths, and so really, to get into one of these cubicles, you're just limiting yourself. It's only when you rise above and you can be up here on this wall, or on the fence, I like to call it, that you can look down and analyze each of the groups, see what truths you can pick from each of the groups, and uh, not fall prey to the tunnel vision that you get if you fall down into one of these cubicles here. So, from the fence, you don't have to subscribe to anything. I mean, you can have your free will. Free will is the fact that you don't have to hop off into one of these cubicles because they're blinding. And that was just for truths early on. But now I'm realizing it goes much deeper than that. We're talking about just the reality we experience is controlled by our beliefs. So I've got an excerpt that I'd like to read for you that's going to get into exactly what I'm talking about here. So, you form the fabric of your experience through your own beliefs and expectations. These personal ideas about yourself and the nature of reality will affect your thoughts and emotions. You take your beliefs about reality as truth and often do not question them. They seem self explanatory. They appear in your mind as statements of fact, far too obvious for examination. Therefore, they are accepted without question too often. They are not recognized as beliefs about reality, but are instead considered characteristics of reality itself. Frequently, such ideas appear indisputable, so a part of you that it does not occur to you to speculate about their validity. They become invisible assumptions, but they nevertheless color and form your personal experience. Some people, for example, do not question their religious beliefs but accept them as fact. Others find it comparatively easy to recognize such inner assumptions when they appear in a religious context, but are quite blind to them in other areas. It is far simpler to recognize your own beliefs in regard to religion, politics, or similar subjects than it is to pinpoint your deepest beliefs about yourself and who and what you are, particularly in relationships with your own life. Many individuals are completely blind to their own beliefs about themselves and the nature of reality. Your own conscious thoughts will give you excellent clues. Often you will find yourself refusing to accept certain thoughts that come to your mind because they conflict with other usually accepted ideas. Your conscious mind is always trying to give you a clear picture, but you often allow preconceived ideas to block out this intelligence. It has been fashionable to blame the subconscious for personality problems and difficulties. The idea being that early events, charged and mysterious, lodged there. In this country, several generations grew up believing that the subconscious portion of the personality were unreliable, filled with negative energy, and contained only locked up unpleasant episodes best forgotten. They grew up believing that the conscious mind was relatively powerless, that adult experience was set in the days of infancy. These concepts themselves set up artificial divisions. People learned that they should not be aware of subconscious material. The doors to the inner self were to be shut tight. Only lengthy psychoanalysis could or should open them. The normal individual felt that he had best leave such areas alone. So, in cutting off these portions of the self, barriers were also set up against the joy of the inner spontaneous self. People felt divorced from the core of their own reality. The concept of original sin was a very poor, limited, and distorted one, but at least along with it went rather simple procedures. Through baptism, you might be saved, or through certain words, or sacraments, or rituals, redemption could be found. The idea of the tainted subconscious, however, left man no such relatively easy way out. The few rituals possible required years of analysis, which only the very wealthy were privileged to experience. About the same time that the idea of the unsavory subconscious arose so strongly, the idea of the soul went out the window. Millions of people therefore believed in a reality in which they were deprived of the idea of a soul and burdened by the concept of a very unreliable, if not definitely evil, subconscious. They saw themselves as vulnerable, solitary points of egos, riding perilously and unprotected upon the tumultuous waves of involuntary processes. At about the same time, many intelligent persons were realizing that organized religions, ideas of God, and of heaven and hell were distorted, unjust, and smacked of children's fairy tales. For these individuals, there was no place to look for help. Under the circumstances, to look within would have seemed foolhardy, for they had been taught that this within contained the source of their problems to begin with. Those who could not afford therapy tried the harder to inhibit any messages from the inner self, for fear they would become swallowed by the savage infantile emotions. Now, first of all, there are no limitations or divisions to the self, though for purposes of discussion, a word like ego may be used here because you understand what you think it means. You can indeed depend upon seemingly unconscious portions of yourself. As you will see later, you can become more and more consciously aware, therefore bringing into your consciousness larger and larger portions of yourself. You breathe, grow, and perform multitudinous, delicate, and precise activities constantly without being consciously aware of how you carry out such manipulations. You live without consciously knowing how you maintain this miracle of physical awareness in the world, of flesh and time. The seemingly unconscious portion of yourself draws atoms and molecules from the air to form your image. Your lips move, your tongue speaks your name. Does the name belong to the atoms and molecules within your lips or tongue? The atoms and molecules move constantly, forming into cells, tissues, and organs. How can the name the tongue speaks belong to them? They do not read or write, yet they speak complicated uh, syllables that communicate to other beings such as yourself anything from a simple feeling to the most complicated information. How do they do this? The atoms and molecules of the tongue do not know the syntax of the language they speak. When you begin a sentence, you do not have the slightest conscious idea often of how you will finish it, yet you take it on faith that the words will make sense and your meaning will flow out effortlessly. All of this happens because the inner portions of your being operate spontaneously, joyfully, freely. All of this occurs because your inner self believes in you, often even while you do not believe in it. In it. These unconscious portions of your being operate amazingly well, frequently despite the greatest misunderstandings on your part of their nature and function, and in the face of strong interference from you because of your beliefs. Each person experiences a unique reality, different from any other individual's. This reality springs outward from the inner landscape of thoughts, feelings, expectations, and beliefs. If you believe that the inner self works against you rather than for you, then you hamper its functioning, or rather, you force it to behave in a certain way because of your beliefs. The conscious mind is meant to make clear judgments about your position in physical reality. Often, false beliefs will prevent it from making these, for the egotistically held ideas will cloud its clear vision. Your beliefs can be like fences that surround you. You must first recognize the existence of such barriers. You must see them, or you will not even realize that you are not free, simply because you will not see beyond the fences. They will represent the boundaries of your experience. There is one belief, however, that destroys artificial barriers to perception, an expanding belief that automatically pierces false and inhibiting ideas. Now separately. Let's see. The self is not limited. That statement is a statement of fact. It exists regardless of your belief or disbelief in it. Following this concept is another. There are no boundaries or separations of the self. And this sounds just like the Law of One material when you really dive in deep to that. This is really good stuff here. Those that you experience are the result of false beliefs. Following this is the idea that I have already mentioned. You make your own reality. To understand yourself and what you are, you can learn to experience yourself directly apart from your beliefs about yourself. What I would like each reader to do is to sit quietly, close your eyes, try to sense within yourself the deep feeling tones that I mentioned earlier. This is not difficult to do. Your knowledge of their existence will help you recognize their deep rhythms within you. Each individual will sense these tones in his or her own way, so do not worry about how they should feel. Simply tell yourself that they exist, that they are composed of the great energies of your being made flesh. Then let yourself experience. If you are used to terms like meditation, try to forget the term during this procedure. Do not use any name. Free yourself from concepts and experience the being of yourself and the motion of your own vitality. Do not question, is this right? Am I doing it correctly? Am I feeling what I should feel? This is the book's first exercise for you. You are not to use other people's criteria. There are no standards but your own feelings. No particular time limit is recommended. This should be an enjoyable experience. Accept whatever happens as uniquely your own. The exercise will put you in touch with yourself. It will return you to yourself. Whenever you are nervous or upset, take a few moments to sense this feeling tone within you, and you will find yourself centered in your own being, secure. When you have tried this exercise several times, then feel these deep rhythms go out from you in all directions, as indeed they do. Electromagnetically, they radiate out through your physical being, and in ways that I hope to explain later. They form the environment that you know, even as they form your physical image. I told you that the self was not limited, yet surely you think that your self stops where your skin meets space, that you are inside your skin, period. Yet your environment is an extension of yourself. It is the body of your experience, coalesce in physical form. The inner self forms the objects that you know as surely as automatically as it forms your finger or your eye. Your environment is the physical picture of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs made visible. Since your thoughts, emotion, and beliefs move through space and time, you therefore affect physical conditions separate from you. Consider the spectacular framework of your body just from the physical standpoint. You perceive it as solid, as you perceive all other physical matter. Yet the more matter is explored, the more obvious it becomes that within it energy takes on specific shape in the form of organs, cells, molecules, atoms, electrons, each less physical than the last, each combining in mysterious gestalt to form matter. The atoms within your body spin. There is constant commotion and activity. The flesh that seemed so solid turns out to be composed of swiftly moving particles, often orbiting each other, in which great exchanges of energy continually occur. The stuff, the space outside of your body, is composed of the same elements, but in different proportions. There is a constant physical interaction between the structure you call your body and the space outside it. Chemical interactions, basic exchanges without which life as you know it would be impossible. To hold your breath is to die. Breath, which represents the most intimate and most necessary of your physical sensations, must flow out from what you are, passing into the world that seems to be not you. Physically, portions of you leave your body constantly and intermix with the elements. You know what happens when adrenaline is released through the bloodstream. It stirs you up and prepares you for action. But in other ways, the adrenaline does not just stay in your body. It is cast into the air and it affects the atmosphere, though it is transformed. Any of your emotions liberate hormones, but these also leave you as the breath leaves you. And in that respect, you can say that you release chemicals into the air that then affect you. Physical storms, then, are caused by such interactions. I am telling you that you form your own reality once again, and this includes the physical weather, which is the result, en masse, of your individual reactions. I will elaborate much more specifically on this particular point later in the book. You are in physical existence to learn and understand that your energy translated into feelings, thoughts, and emotions causes all experience. There are no exceptions. Once you understand this, you have only to learn to examine the nature of your beliefs, for these will automatically cause you to feel and think in certain fashions. Your emotions follow your beliefs. It is not the only it's not the other way around. So your emotions follow your beliefs. I would like you to recognize your own beliefs in several ways. You must realize that any idea you accept as truth is a belief that you hold. You must then take the next step and say, it is not necessarily true, even though I believe it. You will, I hope, learn to disregard all beliefs that imply basic limitations. Later, we will discuss some of the reasons for your beliefs, but for now, I simply want you to recognize them. I'm going to list some limiting false beliefs. If you find yourself agreeing with any of them, then recognize this is an area in which you must personally work. Now, this is going to hit some people because this definitely struck some chords with me. Uh, Number one, life is a valley of sorrows. Two, the body is inferior. As a vehicle of the soul, it is automatically degraded, tinged. You may feel that the flesh is inherently bad or evil, that its appetites are wrong. Christians may find the body deplorable, thinking that the soul descended into it. Descent, automatically meaning the change from a higher or better condition to one that is worse. Followers of Eastern religions often feel it their duty also to deny the flesh, to rise above it, so to speak, into a state where nothing is desired, emptiness. Using a different vocabulary, they still believe that earth experience is not desirable in itself. 3. I am helpless before circumstances that I cannot control. 4. I am I am helpless because my personality and character were formed in infancy, and I am at the mercy of my past. 5. I am helpless because I am at the mercy of events from past lives and other incarnations over which I now have no control. I must be punished, or I am punishing myself for unkindness done to others in past lives. I must accept the negative aspects of my life because of my karma. 6. People are basically bad and out to get me. 7. I have the truth and no one else has it. Or my group has the truth and no other group has. 8. I will grow frailer, sicker, and lose my powers as I grow old. 9. My existence is dependent upon experience and flesh. When my body dies, my consciousness dies with it. Now, that was a rather general list of false beliefs. Now, here is a more specific list of more intimate beliefs, any of which you may have personally about yourself. I am sickly, and I always have been. There is something wrong with money. People who have it are greedy, less spiritual than those who are poor. They are unhappier and snobs. 3. I'm not creative. I have no imagination. Next, I can never do what I want to do. Next, people dislike me. Next, I am fat. And then 7, I always have bad luck. These are all beliefs held by many people. Those who have them will meet them in experience. Physical data will always seem to reinforce the beliefs. Therefore, but the beliefs formed the reality. We are going to attempt to knock down such limiting concepts. First of all, you must realize that no one can change your beliefs for you, nor can they be forced upon you from without. You can indeed change them for yourself, however, with knowledge and application. Look about you. Your entire physical environment is the materialization of your beliefs. Your sense of joy, sorrow, health, or illness, all of these are also caused by your beliefs. If you believe that a given situation should make you unhappy, then it will, and the unhappiness will then reinforce the condition. Within you is the ability to change your ideas about reality and about yourself to create a personal living experience that is fulfilling to yourself and others. I would like you to write down your beliefs about yourself as you become aware of them. Later, you can use this list in a way that you do not now suspect. Your conscious beliefs direct the functioning of your body. It is not the other way around. Your inner self adopts the physically conscious, physically focused mind as a method of allowing it to manipulate in the world that you know. The conscious mind, in particular, equipped to direct outward activity, to handle waking experience, and oversee physical work. Its beliefs about the nature of reality are then given to inner portions of the self. These rely mainly upon the conscious mind's interpretation of temporal reality. The conscious mind sets the goals and the inner self brings them about, using all its facilities and inexhaustible energy. The great value of the conscious mind lies precisely in its ability to make decisions and set directions. Its role is dual, however. It is meant to assess conditions both inside and outside, to handle data that comes from the physical world and from the inner portions of the self. It is not a closed system then. To be human necessitates fine discrimination in the use of such consciousness. Many people are afraid of their own thoughts. They do not examine them. They accept the beliefs of others. Such actions distort data from both within and without. There is no battle between the intuitive self and the conscious mind. There only seems to be when the individual refuses to face all the information that is available in the conscious mind. Sometimes it seems easier to avoid the frequent readjustments in behavior that self-examination requires. In such cases, an individual collects many second-hand beliefs. Some contradict each other. The signals given to the body and to the inner self are not smoothly flowing or clear-cut, but a muddled jumble of counter directions. These will immediately set off alarms of various natures. The body will not function properly, or the overall emotional environment will suffer. Such reactions are actually excellent precautions, meant to be taken as a sign that change is needed. At the same time, the inner self will transmit to the conscious mind insights and intuitions meant to clear its sight. But if you believe that the inner self is dangerous and not to be trusted, if you are afraid of dreams or any intrusive psychic material, then you deny this help and turn aside from it. If you believe, moreover, that you must accept your difficulties, then this belief alone can deter you from solving them. I repeat, your ideas and beliefs form the structure of your experience. Your beliefs and the reasons for them can be found in your conscious mind. If you accept the idea that the reasons for your behaviors are forever buried in the past of this life or any other, then you will not be able to alter your experience until you change that belief. I am speaking now more or less normal experience. Later, we will discuss more particular areas, such as circumstances in which illnesses date from birth. The realization that you form your own reality should be a liberating one. You are responsible for your successes and your joys. You could change those areas of your life with which you are less than pleased, but you must take the responsibility for your being. Your spirit joined itself with flesh, and in flesh to experience a world of incredible richness, to help create a dimension of reality of colors and of form. Your spirit was born in flesh to enrich a marvelous area of sense awareness, to fill energy made into corporeal form. You are here to enjoy, and express yourself through the body. You are here to aid in the great expansion of consciousness. You are not here to cry about the miseries of the human condition, but to change them when you find them not to your liking through the joy, strength, and vitality that is within you, to create the spirit as faithfully and beautifully as you can in flesh. The conscious mind allows you to look outward into the physical universe and see the reflections of your spiritual activity, to perceive and assess your individual and joint creations. In a matter of speaking, the conscious mind is a window through which you look outward, and looking outward perceive the fruits of your inner mind. Often you let false beliefs blur that great vision. Your joy, vitality, and accomplishment do not come from the outside to you as the result of events that happen to you. They spring from inner events that are the result of your beliefs. Much has been written about the nature and importance of suggestion. One of the current ideas in vogue holds that you are constantly at the mercy of suggestion. Your own conscious beliefs are the most important suggestions that you receive. All other ideas are rejected or accepted according to whether or not you believe they are true. In line with the steady conscious chattering that goes on within your mind most of the day, the suggestions given to you by yourself. You will accept a suggestion given by another only if it fits in your own ideas about the nature of reality in general, and your concepts about yourself in particular. If you use your conscious mind properly, then, you examine those beliefs that come to you. You do not accept them willy-nilly if you use your conscious mind properly. You are also aware of intuitive ideas that come to you from within. You are only half conscious when you do not examine the information that comes to you from without, and when you ignore the data that comes to you from within. Many false beliefs, therefore, are indiscriminately accepted because you have not examined them. You have given the inner self a faulty picture of reality. Since it is the function of the conscious mind to assess physical experience, it, the inner self, hasn't been able to do its job properly. If the inner portions of the self were supposed to have that responsibility, then you would not need a conscious mind. When the inner self is alerted, it will immediately try to remedy the situation by an influx of self-corrective measures. On occasion, when the situation gets out of hand, it will bypass those restrictive areas of the conscious mind and solve the problem by shooting forth energy in other layers of activity. It will manage to work around the blind spots in the reasoning mind. For example, often it will sift out from the barrage of conflicting beliefs the particular set that is the most life-giving and send these forth in what then appears as a burst of revelation. Such revelation result in new patterns that change behavior. That's those epiphanies or those awakening moments. You must be aware of the contents of your own reasoning mind. Find the ambiguities. Regardless of the nature of your beliefs, they are indeed made flesh and material. The miracle of your being cannot escape itself. Your thoughts blossom into events. If you think the world is evil, you will meet with events that seem evil. There are no accidents in cosmic terms or in terms of the world as you know it. Your beliefs grow as surely in time and space as flowers do. When you realize this, you can even feel they're growing. The conscious mind is basically curious, open. It is also equipped to examine its own contents. Because of the psychological theories of the last century, many Western people believed that the primary purpose of the conscious mind was to inhibit unconscious material. Instead, as mentioned, it is also meant to receive and interpret important data that comes to it from the inner self. Left alone, it does this very well. It receives and interprets impressions. What has happened, however, is that man has taught it to accept only the data coming from the outside world and to set up barriers against the inner knowledge. Such a situation denies the individual his full strength and cuts him off, consciously now, from the important sources of his being. These conditions inhibit creative expression in particular and deny the conscious self the continually emerging insights and intuitions otherwise unavailable. Thought and feeling then seem separate. Creativity and intellect do not show themselves as the brothers that they are, but often as strangers. The conscious mind loses its fine edge. It cuts out from its experience the vast body of inner knowledge available to it. Divisions, illusionary ones, appear in the self. Left alone, the self acts spontaneously, as a unit, but as an ever-changing one. Listening to voices both within and without, the conscious mind is able to form beliefs that are in league with the self's knowledge as received from material and non-material sources. Then examination of beliefs takes its place along with other activities, naturally, easily, without effort. Once the conscious mind has accepted a collection of conflicting beliefs, however, a definite attempt is necessary to sort these out. Remember, even false beliefs will seem to be justified in terms of physical data, since your experience in the outside world is the materialization of those beliefs. So you must work with the raw material of your ideas, even while your sense data may tell you that a given belief is obviously a truth. To change your experience, or any portion of it then, you must change your ideas. Since you have been forming your own reality all along, the results will follow naturally. You must be convinced that you can alter your beliefs. You must be willing to try. Think of a limiting idea as a muddy color and your life as a multi-dimensional painting that is marred. You change the idea as an artist would change his palette. The artist does not identify with the colors he uses. He knows he chooses them and applies them with a brush. So you paint your reality with your ideas in the same manner. You are not your ideas, nor even your thoughts. You are the self who experiences them. If a painter finds his hands stained with pigment at the end of the day, he can wash the stain off easily, knowing its nature. If you think that limiting thoughts are a portion of you, permanently attached, therefore, you will not think of washing them off. You would behave instead like a mad artist who says, "My paints are a part of me. They have stained my fingers and there's nothing I can do about it." There is no contradiction, though there may seem to be, between spontaneously being aware of your thoughts and examining them. You do not have to be blind uh, to be spontaneous. You are not being spontaneous when you indiscriminately accept as your own for a fact every bit of data that comes to you. Many beliefs would automatically fall away quite harmlessly if you were being truly spontaneous. Instead, you often harbor them. Previously limiting ideas accepted figuratively form a restraining bed, gathering other such materials so that your mind becomes filled with debris. When you are spontaneous, you accept the free nature of your mind and it spontaneously makes decisions as to the validity or non-validity of data it receives. When you refuse to allow it this function, it becomes cluttered. No apple tree tries to grow violets. Quite automatically, it knows what it is and the framework of its own identity and existence. You have a conscious mind, but this is only the topmost portion of your mind. Much more of it is available to you. Much more of your knowledge can be conscious, therefore, but a false belief, a limiting one, is as ambiguous to your nature as any apple tree's idea that it was a violet plant. It could not produce violets, nor could it be a good apple tree while it tried to. The mistaken belief is one that does not fit the basic conditions of your inner being. So if you believe that you are at the mercy of physical events, you entertain a false belief. If you feel that your present experience was set in circumstances beyond your control, you entertain a false belief. You had a hand in the development of your childhood environment. You chose the circumstances. This does not mean that you are at the mercy of those circumstances. It means that you set challenges to be overcome, set goals to be reached, set up frameworks of experience through which you could develop, understand, and fulfill certain abilities. The creative power to form your own experience is within you now, as it has been since the time of your birth and before. You may have chosen a particular theme for this existence, a certain framework of conditions, but within these you have the freedom to experiment, create, and alter conditions and events. Each person chooses for himself the individual patterns within which he will create this personal reality. But inside these bounds are infinite varieties of actions and unlimited resources. The inner self is embarked upon an exciting endeavor in which it learns how to translate its reality into physical terms. The conscious mind is brilliantly attuned to physical reality, then, and often so dazzled by what is perceived that it is tempted to think physical phenomena is a cause rather than a result. Deeper portions of the self always serve to remind it that this is not the case. When the conscious mind accepts too many false beliefs, particularly if it sees that inner self as a danger, then it closes out these constant reminders. When the situation arises, the conscious mind feels itself assailed by a reality that seems greater than itself, over which it has no control. The deep feeling of security in which it should be anchored is lost. The false beliefs must be weeded out so that the conscious mind can become aware of its sources once again, and open to the inner channels of splendor and power available to it. The ego is an offshoot of the conscious mind, so to speak. The conscious mind is like a gigantic camera with the ego directing the view and the focus. Left alone, various portions of the identity rise and form the ego, degroup, and reform, all the while maintaining a marvelous spontaneity and yet a sense of oneness. The ego is your idea of your physical image in relation to the world. Your image, your self image, is not unconscious then. You are quite aware of it, though often you reject certain thoughts about it in favor of others. False beliefs can result in a rigid ego that insists upon using the conscious mind in one direction only, further distorting its perceptions. Often you quite consciously decide to bury a thought or an idea that might cause you to alter your behavior because it does not seem to fit in with limiting ideas that you already hold. Listen to your own train of thought as you go about your days. What suggestions and ideas are you giving yourself? Realize that these will be materialized in your personal experience. And how often do we do that? You walk around like, I feel fat, or I'm just so unhealthy, or, you know, I need to exercise more, with the idea that you don't exercise enough, but you're creating this environment to fail. It's crazy. Many quite limiting ideas will pass without scrutiny under the guise of goodness. You may feel quite virtuous, for example, in hating evil or what seems to you to be evil. But if you find yourself concentrating upon either hatred or evil, you are creating it. If you are poor, you may feel quite self righteous in your financial condition, looking with scorn upon those who are wealthy, telling yourself that money is wrong, and so reinforcing the condition of poverty. If you are ill, you may find yourself dwelling upon the misery of your condition and bitterly envying those who are healthy, bemoaning your state, and therefore perpetuating it through your thoughts. Sorry, my grandson just got here, it sounds like. If you dwell upon limitations, then you will meet them. You must create a new picture in your mind. It will differ from the picture your physical senses may show you at any given time, precisely in those areas where changes are required. Hatred of war will not bring peace. Another example. Only love of peace will bring about those conditions. A quite I quite realize that many of my statements will contradict beliefs of those of you who accept the idea that the conscious mind is relatively powerless and that the answers to problems lie hidden beneath. Obviously, the conscious mind is a phenomenon, not a thing. It is ever changing. It can be concentrated or turned by the ego in literally endless directions. It can view outward reality or turn inward, observing its own contents. There are there are gradations and fluctuations within its activity. It is far more flexible than you give credit for. The ego can use the conscious mind almost entirely as a way of perceiving external or internal realities that coincide with its own beliefs. It is not that certain answers do not lie openly accessible, therefore, but that often you have set yourself on a course of action in which you believe, and you do not want to open yourself to any material that may contradict your current beliefs. If you are sick, for example, to re- there is a reason, sorry, to recover thoroughly without taking on new symptoms. You must discover the reason. You may dislike your illness, but it is a course you have decided upon. While you are convinced that the course is necessary, you will keep the symptoms. And that I just wanted to add that kind of gets into how many people have, like, say, weight problems, and you just kind of give up in your mind and say, I'm just, some people are fat. I'm just a fat person. I've always been sort of a little fat. I've always kind of been a borderline fat person, so I haven't ever had it be too much of. I just eat what I want, and I start getting fat. I realize, oh, I've been eating a little bit too much. But now these may be the result of one specific belief, or caused by a complex of beliefs held together. The beliefs, of course, will be accepted by you not as beliefs, but as reality. Once you understand that you form your reality, then you must begin to examine these beliefs by letting the conscious mind freely examine its own contents. We will speak about health and illness more specifically later in the book. I would like to make one point here, however, that often psychoanalysis is simply a game of hide and seek in which you continue to relinquish responsibility for your actions and reality and assign the basic cause to some area of the psyche hidden in a dark forest of the past. Then you give yourself the task of finding this secret. In so doing, you never think of looking for it in the conscious mind, since you are convinced that all deep answers lie far beneath, and moreover, that your consciousness is not only unable to help you, but will often send up camouflages instead. So you play that game. When and if you manage to change your beliefs in that self deceptive framework, then any suitable forgotten event from the past will be used as a catalyst. One would do as well as another. The basic beliefs, however, were always in your conscious mind and the reasons for your behaviors. You simply had not examined its contents with the realization that your beliefs were not necessarily reality, but often your conceptions of it. At the same time, in psychoanalysis, you are often programmed to believe that the unconscious, being the source of such dark secrets, cannot be counted upon as any bed of creativity or inspiration. And so you are denied the help that the inner portions of the self could give to your consciousness. Usually, when you do examine your conscious mind, you do so looking through or with your own structured beliefs. The knowledge that your beliefs are not necessarily reality will allow you to be aware of all the data that is consciously available to you. I am not telling you to examine your thoughts so frequently and with such vigor that you get in your own way, but you are not fully conscious unless you are aware of the contents of your conscious mind. I am also emphasizing the fact that the conscious mind is equipped to receive information from the inner self as well as the exterior universe. And this gets back to being in the moment. You can really examine this stuff if you're really thinking about, what am I thinking right now? You don't have to, like it's saying, you don't have to be crazy about it, but most of the time we're not even in the moment, and if we were, we would recognize some of these things and be able to make these conscious changes. Because if you're not in the moment, you're not aware of the moment. I'm not telling you to inhibit thoughts or feelings. I'm asking that you become aware of those you have. Realize that they form your reality. Concentrate upon those that give you the results that you want. If you find all of this difficult, you can also examine your physical reality in all of its aspects. Realize that your physical experience and environment is the materialization of your beliefs. If you find great exuberance, health, effective work, abundance, smiles on the faces of those you meet, then take it for granted that your beliefs are beneficial. If you see a world that is good, people that like you, take it for granted again that your beliefs are beneficial. But if you find poor health, a lack of meaningful work, a lack of abundance, a world of sorrow and evil, then assume that your beliefs are faulty and begin examining them. We will later discuss the nature of mass reality, but for now we are dwelling upon the personal aspects. The main point I wanted to make in this chapter was that your conscious beliefs are extremely important and that you are not at the mercy of events or causes that dwell far beneath your awareness. So that wraps this up, but wow, it was like actually actionable intelligence, as I mentioned to one friend in the email earlier. That's also reading the book. Um, and that just about rounds out an hour. I hope you guys stuck with me. I feel like this was great information and ways that we can actually apply these things to our life right now. Being in the moment, paying attention to our thoughts, paying attention to what things we're telling ourselves, and all that chatter. I've mentioned that I have a rough time meditating because it seems like, I've always got these voices going on in my head. So that's telling me start paying attention. What are these voices saying? You know what I mean? And that last one hit me. Just here I am waiting for ascension or something to happen, and feeling like this world is a horrible place at times, and that I just can't wait. But that right there is showing me that I'm in the wrong mindset. I need to do a better job at not resonating with the the hatred of the situation that I find myself in so many times. But I do appreciate you guys watching, and I got more to come. I hope this was edifying to you, and thanks for joining me on the fence. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.